All right. Hello, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I feel like it's been a while since we read this and we're doing our Voxer check-in, so I need to get back into
Right.
my Great
Great,
Expectations state of
great
mind.
expectation. Yeah. Because I'm trying to think, when did you and I actually read this? It was
Um
beginning of October? No, end of
no, it was the end of October
the end of October.
because I remember being uh spooked out by a scene or two or a character and being like, this was the
Right.
perfect day to
Yes.
introduce this character. Yeah.
Yes. I think we started it the week of Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That was it. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Well, I guess let's introduce ourselves, talk about what we're doing here, and then we can say hi to anybody who has joined us and commented in the chat, and we'll get going with the discussion.
All right. Sounds good. So this is where we're across the halfway point in our high school reading challenge.
Yeah.
So this has been a little project we made for ourselves. We picked 10 books that we were assigned in high school that we wanted to revisit because either we didn't read them when we were supposed to, or we've evolved and we want to revisit things. So yeah, this is our high school required reading challenge. And this month's a little bit different because it also happens to be your book club pick. So
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So I have a book club that I host that I do with my channel members. And I thought it would be very convenient for me, one,
yeah,
to have these two overlap. But there were quite a few people in the book club who said they wanted to read a Dickens. And I was like, well, why would I read Great Expectations for this challenge and not also for book club? And then that would just give us more people to talk about it with. So
yeah,
that was my thought with that. So yeah, so very exciting.
yeah.
So both
That's really fun because I know there have been a handful of people who are kind of reading along with us as we go through our high school challenge, and we get the conversation going in the comments, and that just adds to the fun. Anytime anyone wants to talk to me with me about books, I'm there. So this is fun. Now the live, everyone's kind of been on the same schedule, ready for book club.
yeah,
This is a good one. I'm excited to see what other people had to say about
me
Great.
too. Me too. Yeah, it's like the meeting of all the worlds together. And we have a couple of people in the chat who have already joined us. Hello, Ian. So glad you could make it and found out. Hello, Doug. Yes, it's finally one. Doug was like, is it one yet? And yeah, so very exciting. And yeah, let's get into it. I'm really looking forward to talking about this. I mean, I enjoy all our conversations about books. So yeah.
All right. So I guess some housekeeping going into the discussion. Our approach, we do include some spoilers. Try not to be too spoilery, but it happens. And especially now with this being a book club discussion, that's less of an issue. So that's going to make it easier
Yeah.
for us.
No, I plan on spoiling all sorts of stuff. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
be
So
warned.
I like how this landed where it's book club.
Yeah.
Everyone's already read it. We're all on the same page and we can talk freely. I like that. Yeah, anything else? I guess if you are watching this live, definitely give us your 2 cents or more. Comment and let us know if you agree, disagree, what you have to add. But if you're watching this on a playback, because I think what this automatically saves to your channel now. So if you're watching this on a playback, the way this conversation goes, I mean, it pretty much ends up being a podcast style. So just listen while you're doing stuff because we can go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And other than showing the covers of our books, unless you just want to stare at our faces.
Yeah. But even if you're watching this on a playback, keep the conversation going in the comments. Yeah, we love that. We'll definitely keep checking back and yeah, keep talking.
Yeah. And Natalie has joined, and no worries if you haven't read it, but like I said, we will be sharing spoilers. So you have been warned. We will try to warn you before we say them again, but no promises. And Kristen finished reading on Thursday, so just got it in. And you'll mute it and keep it playing so you don't get spoiled. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we will try to remember to mention when we're going to say spoilers, but pretty much after the opening of the book, everything's a spoiler. Like, it's hard to talk about the book without talking about things that are like, ooh, didn't know that. But yeah, all right, let's get to it so we don't spend too long.
So my copy of the book, I had this very old Penguin Classics, the like old black spines that I found, I think for like $1 or something at my library bookstore. Love that.
Hey, that's the nice thing about classics sometimes is you can pick them up for free, for cheap.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw this, I was like, okay, $1, I have to, because the other copy I had was this Barnes & Noble edition. And it's tiny. And so I opened it up today and I was like, yeah, I would have been miserable reading it. It's extra big and a little tight.
Yeah. That would have made me feel like the book's never going to end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why I've been so intimidated by Dickens and this book. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, this is doable.
Yeah, that doesn't feel too bad. Well, this is my edition. I like how all the covers are like very like gloomy and moody.
Yeah.
And this is put out by Union Square. I like to think that this is like the gate and that's the house, Satis house back in there. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but and then because I have multiple editions. I also have this edition. I was showing Alex before we got on because I was telling her that the one thing that I missed about having a Penguin Black Spine edition, the newer ones, is you don't get the drawings or paintings, but this one does have some. So we can all guess who that is. So I have that one. And then I have my absolute favorite, which is the Tor editions, which has like fabulous artwork and super cheesy.
Yeah, the Tor editions are fun.
Yeah. Like the quotes on it are always just like cheesy and fun. So that's what I had. And then Chris said, spoiler, Mrs. Havisham runs a secret pumpkin spice coffee shop. No, you gave it away. That's not a cemetery on the cover. It's a pumpkin patch. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I did say it was a good one for Halloween.
Yeah. There you go. All right, so getting into our book club, our little discussion questions that we always go through. I guess we normally start with our synopsis, right?
Yep. Well, and did we say whose list this was off of? It was yours.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I will let you go ahead and give the synopsis since this was you added this to our reading list.
Yeah. So I read this either like 8th grade, 9th grade, something like that. And I recall it being really boring. In fact, this got on our list because for me, it was a response to the question, or I think I even put the question onto our tag video about like the book that you just had to keep reading over and over again, because I'm pretty sure they had us start reading this in middle school as excerpts. And then I think we read an abridged version of it, and then eventually a full-length version of it, maybe in high school. And I just remember every single time hating this story, thinking it was so boring, and wondering why it just kept coming back up over and over again. And the only things I remember about the book, which we talked about this while we're reading it, because I was like, how do I remember nothing about this book? I remembered Pip. I remembered Miss Havisham in a wedding dress. There being some girl. And a fire. Not even what was on fire. That's it. That's
Okay.
literally all I recall. So that was my experience. And going into this book, I had very low expectations, which is kind of funny. I didn't mean that pun there. But okay, so this book, what can I tell you about it? It is a coming of age story, a Bildungsroman, which is something that Charles Dickens loves to write, a good coming of age story. He tends to have a lot of young male boys as characters in his book. This is one of, I think, 4 young boy children. David Copperfield, he said, was his favorite.
And yours.
Yeah, which I agree. And this is the story of Pip, who is surprised to find out that even though he is growing up and has reached maybe the age of 8 or 9, and he's been poor, that he suddenly finds that he is to come into great expectations. And the story follows his life and his growing up as he starts to realize these great expectations, and how it kind of changes him as a person as he grows into what he expects to happen to him and what others expect for him. And it definitely follows him on that journey through life and the people that he encounters and the frenemies, I feel like, that he makes along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And so I will say, with right off the bat, the title, I don't think I had ever made the connection that expectations is referring to like an inheritance. Is that how the term is used? Because I thought it was just like almost like an anticipation, like we expect things of you, not that he is receiving great expectations. Like, is that another way it was used? I
don't know if historically so. I would just say in the book it is, because one of the first mentions that they have is, oh, he has great expectations. Like there's a couple of different references to that.
Like Pip would even like internally and thinking about things and narrating the story, like refer to his expectations as if they were, a tangible thing that's been given to him.
Portable property.
Portable property, yeah. That was such a weird phrase too. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't know. I love alliteration, but like that phrase just wasn't doing it for me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I guess given the circumstances into how they occurred, right? Because his great expectations like show up in a couple of different ways. Like first there is just the initial great expectation where he's called to go to Miss Havisham's home. And he is, basically going to be given some sort of job or work there. And that's probably one of the biggest assumptions right off the start, is they start talking about how they can expect great things to come of this. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I don't think they're necessarily thinking inheritance. I'm thinking they're just thinking that, if he plays his chips right, that something good might come of it. Mm-hmm. But later, it definitely starts to become more and more the idea of inheritance.
All right. So yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask you. Just this is you definitely are the more versed in Victorian literature and stuff like that. So I'm going to be referring back to you or asking you a lot of questions, more than I did while we were reading, but I'll definitely be throwing things back your way.
Okay, I will try to answer as many as I can. I make no promises, though. I will say, like, other background stuff that I did find and look into, and that came up while we were reading it, was just in terms of, like, I think it's important to know, like, why this book was written and how it was written. So at the time that Dickens wrote this book, he had his own like literature magazine that other people were publishing short stories, long stories, like serialized works in, and that kind of thing. And the most recent edition, I guess I should say, of the magazine had come out, and the vast majority of people who read it, I guess there was one major story was featured in it, and it was by a well-known author, but a lot of people really didn't like the story. Like, it was basically just a flop. And what ended up happening after that is that the number of people buying the magazine significantly dropped off. And at the time, this was Dickens' like major source of income for him, and he had a decently large family. And so he was at the point where he's like, okay, I have to do something to save my magazine. And so he had already started writing Great Expectations, but that was what ended up making him decide to put it in his own magazine and to serialize it. And so serializing it, which I think broke it up over the course of a year, largely impacted his writing of the book because as far as I can tell from his notes and stuff and letters that he wrote, it was one of the things that led him making the book a little bit longer than he initially intended. And we can talk about whether or not that impacted plot and that kind of thing. And then another aspect of what was going on in his life with an actress, I will talk about when we get to likes and dislikes, because that has to do with one of the characters in the book. So,
all right. So I am not a Dickens reader. I would say this is the first time I've really read him, because the only experience I have with Charles Dickens is I listened to his like the shortened version of A Christmas Carol, because he had like edited it himself for like when he would do live performances for Christmas. And so I think former favorite author of mine, Neil Gaiman, he reads it maybe annually or something like that. So like that, listening to that has been my only other like Charles Dickens experience. So this is the first time I'm like reading him in full. And so it never came up in a school reading list for me, but I did have, I think my 6th grade like social studies teacher recommended it to me because she knew I was a big reader, but she like recommended it and then like immediately walked it back and was like, oh no, wait, maybe it's not appropriate. Like it is a little mature. So that leads to me going into this. I was expecting it to be like a little more romance heavy or like a little more scandalous. Because now I'm like, what was she walking back the recommendation on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty sure we read decent chunks of this in middle school, and other than finding it boring, I don't think there was ever a question that it was age inappropriate. So that's interesting.
Right. So yeah, so that's going into this. I expected it to be a little more. I don't know what I was expecting. Like that interaction with that 6th grade teacher, like kind of threw me. And then knowing that Charles Dickens did serialize a lot of his books and just like hearing how people say like, oh, you know, he's paid by the word, or like he overwrites things, that I found really intimidating and kind of, kept me from really wanting to dive into his works. So I mean, that's my expectation of the book, was for it to be extra wordy and overwritten. Yeah, I guess we'll get into dislikes and likes and like whether or not I found that to be true. But yeah.
So to bring it back to people who are in the comments as well, which will go back and forth between you guys, just so you know. But, let us know if this is your first time reading it or if you've read it before, and if you had any expectations, great or not, on the book. And and at some point, we definitely need to talk about the serialization thing in Charles Dickens and the paid by the word thing, because I do think that a lot of people, if they're not familiar with serialized work, don't really understand what that means. Like the closest modern day equivalent I could think of is like authors today still, if you're writing in a certain genre, like your book is expected to come out around a certain length. or if you're submitting to a literary publication today, like there's a word or length requirement in that as well. And so because he was publishing in magazines, similar thing. And he does talk about in the writing of this book that he reached a point, and he had a similar thing happen in Nicholas Nickleby, where he had already written a chapter and then realized that he was going to have to publish it like on a certain day or with certain other chapters, and like had to figure out how to make it longer. And that happened with him with a bit of this book because he had already started writing it to be a novel before he had to switch it to serialization. So there were parts of it that he was like, okay, I'm going to have to expand this a little bit, which is slightly different than being paid by the word. Like at that point, you're like trying to make it fit your, sort of type criteria. But let's go back to people in the comments real quick. A couple more people joined us. I did not know that there were different endings. So when we get to the end, Doug, you're going to have to tell us more about that.
Yeah.
And hello to Olivia. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. And we're going to talk about Havisham. Doug said he recently read it and really enjoyed it.
Good to know.
Yeah. Hey, Dina. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts as well. Lots of hellos going on in the comments. Ian hasn't read it yet, and see if you can get it from the library. I typically haven't had a hard time finding it, so hopefully you will be able to get it as well.
I just grabbed it from the library. It was on the shelf. Like, no problem. Yeah. Like, I don't see it in the store all the time, but in libraries, I've typically seen it. So your expectations, thinking too much, Clarissa. Maybe. I didn't read it all that far in Clarissa. I don't think I got through February.
Yeah, Doug was making fun of me earlier because he was like, because in my video that came out today, I was complaining about like families arguing in books for too long. And he was like, she says as she reads Clarissa. And I was like, fair point.
Yeah, good one, Doug.
Oh, a wonderful title because we can take it so many ways and then we find out what it really means further on.
Yeah, the word is doing like double duty for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And EM preferred the writing they were talking about David Copperfield and Demon Copperhead. Yeah. The serial layout makes David and Demon comparison a little unfair. Oh, I haven't read them both. You can't believe that someone would recommend it to a sixth grader. I feel like, I swear, like the only reason I think I read it in ninth grade is because so many people swear it's a high school read. Yeah, and I swear we kept touching on it in middle school.
The teacher who recommended it to me, she was older. Like she, and so I feel like probably she had read it young because there wasn't a lot of like children's literature. I think like there was just the books that they were reading in school, and like there wasn't the like age kind of breakdowns that we have now. So maybe that's what she was thinking of. Like she wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm going to recommend a middle grade book to the sixth grader, or like,
Yeah. And Doug's amazed that it would be recommended to any grade. And then Chris was saying that this time found that the book to focus on social justice and how one decision by someone in power can have devastating effects for so many people. Yeah. And Kristen read it sophomore year and would have said you liked it in high school. After a reread, you realized, yes, okay, Kristen, I'm glad it wasn't just me who remembers 0. And oh no, Alex froze. Let me see if I remove her, if I can. No, she's still frozen. Okay, I will add Alex back on when she unfreezes. She was having issues with her computer earlier, so I will add her back on as soon as she unfreezes. Well, I think she's had to log out and try logging back in. So you can rejoin us, Alex, whenever you're able to. You would have thought the entire book took place at Miss Havisham's. That's the part of the story that sticks out to me the most, is being in her home, and maybe because it's so descriptive. You have fake read it, but you didn't finish it, and then you reread it 3 years ago. Still middling Dickens for you. You liked it fine, but so many others are better. The audiobook had both endings. Okay. Yeah, I'm wanting to hear about this ending too. And I want to know which ending I read. Yay, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah, my computer just did it does this blip every once in a while where it just powers down and right back on.
Oh no.
So, sorry.
That's not. Yeah. So Kristen said that her audiobook had both endings. So now we're definitely going to have to talk about the two endings, and I want to know which one I read.
Yeah.
Right about, yeah, Dickens is definitely always talking about social justice issues. Not all of them, but at least some of them. High praise that she recommended it to you.
Yeah, I was a little bit of a nose in a book at all times kind of kid. Maybe that was it.
Ian thinks he read the original ending, and ending was Russian. Oh, as in sad. Oh, and then he remade it to be American Happy. This is reminding me of Anthony Burgess.
That so I wonder what ending we read then, because I wouldn't describe it as either happy or sad.
Yeah, and we read the same ending.
Yeah,
which is also interesting. So
yeah, my audiobook matched up because I did a immersive reading thing.
Yeah. And okay, we'll have to get to that. But okay, but before we get to that, we'll backtrack. When we get to the end, we're definitely going to be talking about these endings, because this is interesting. And now I'm wondering if, because this is the classic edition, if this maybe has going to be at some point comparing what's the last paragraph of that book. Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, so I guess to get more into the book and pull out some themes that we saw come up in the story, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can definitely start with the themes. And you guys can also mention in the comments any themes that you noticed. I noticed themes on community and friendship, and there seemed to be an emphasis on the importance of that. The idea of satisfaction or something being enough. I thought about that even with the house name. A lot of this story is about what is enough and what does somebody really need. To me, the theme that stood out the most, especially with it being a Bildungsroman, was sort of the idea of the making of a gentleman. What does it take to become a real man, if you will, or a real woman? And I would say that the answer to that was maybe suffering. Yeah. And then there's obviously a lot of discussion about love. Mm-hmm. So what about you?
Yeah, so I think what I picked up on the most was kind of going back to the title, and expectations and misconception kind of theme kept going up. Especially Pip spends the entire book operating under an assumption until as he makes a discovery or there's a reveal to him, then he kind of has to go back and realize oh, I've kind of made a fool of myself operating under this. And I think it extends to even how another theme someone mentioned, Charles Dickens being what did someone say? Something about being a social activist or having the social commentary. And so I think that was something I picked up on a lot, is this theme of class. And so I think misconceptions tie into that, into how, you read or like see a character described in a certain way and just assume they're going to be the bad guy, or assume they're poor and miserable, and assume that these rich people are better off, this higher class, this more educated, they have some level of life satisfaction that, the blacksmith can't have. And that doesn't be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because to me, it's almost like, even though it's like, how do you become a gentleman? It's also like, will the real gentleman stand up?
Yeah.
Like, not just the ones who are the gentlemen because the class says they are.
Absolutely. Yep. And then I think tying into that, we also have this theme of like, Charles Dickens is kind of showing us how the criminal justice system works and how discriminatory the practices are. If you're poor, you're going to jail. If you can pay for a lawyer, you're, not going to have as long, or you're going to get off completely. And I thought that was a pretty relevant theme that, again, ties into the whole class discussion of the book.
Yep. Yep, definitely. Yeah. And people in the comments have already talked about the idea of like the social justice that is in there. Doug was saying that apparently Ronald Frame is even heavier into the social justice and labor organizing. So that'll be interesting to
Sounds
see.
Good to me, yeah.
Yeah. Because I could definitely listen to more of that. And then they were also talking about the revised ending versus not, and where they land on that. So, but yeah, there were, for a variety of reasons, I think there were a lot of different messages going on in this book, and a lot of different topics that come up in the discussion of Great Expectations, including, Great Expectations, who has them and why. Yeah. So.
Would you say there's almost like too much going on, maybe?
Perhaps.
Maybe. Okay. So I guess let's kind of go into likes, and then we can get into dislikes, and yeah, because that comes into mine, I think.
Okay. So I had quite a few things that I really liked about this book. I'll focus on two of them, but I think some of them are just worth mentioning in passing. One, I did like the humor in this book. Charles Dickens, is my kind of funny. He can, even if I don't like his books, I think in almost all of his books, he can make me laugh out loud. At least once, but certainly chuckle to myself, smile, that kind of thing. Some of the moments I think of are like Wemmick's, spoiler alert, because I'm going to go through the moments. Wemmick's wedding, when he's like, oh, a wedding. I loved that entire chapter. Wemmick, again, when he's talking about how helping friends is like just throwing your money off a bridge. Just that little passing comment, hilarious. Pip being brought up by hand. And even the little small moments of hilarity that are just a passing moment in the book. There's one point, I don't remember who Pip is talking to, but he goes to somebody and it's like the tailor. And the tailor's just buttering his roll. But he's comparing the buttering the hot roll to feather beds, and he talks about how the layers are peeling back the blankets and tucking them. I just thought that was funny. And Pip and Herbert looking into their affairs.
That I think was the funniest part for me. Yeah.
I just Charles Dickens is funny. Even in life, he was known to make people laugh until they cried.
Yeah, there was it was a very sarcastic humor sometimes, and almost a very roundabout way of describing things. You're like, wait, did he say actually what I think he said? It was almost this really backhanded kind of description sometimes. So that was a pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dina was saying on the humor that there's no laughing in Barnaby Rudge. Yeah, I do find that there, like, you can almost predict from the openings of books whether there's going to be humor in them for him. And he does talk about in the notes, like in this book, it has some of his letters that he wrote to friends about the writing of this book. And he does talk about how he wrote the opening to be funny. So I think he kind of like shows his hand early in his writing. The main theme for Ian was what can be expected from life. I like that. Doug says that he could have made 3 novels out of this text. And they go see a bad play of Hamlet. Oh my gosh. Charles Dickens loves his theater, and when he makes fun of it, most of the time it works for me. Okay, other things I liked. Joe. Absolutely loved Joe. I loved that he was loving, lovable, strong, tender, a friend to the end, always talked about how he was a friend no matter what, but was not a pushover. I liked Estella. I thought she was really interesting, the moments that she did have to speak, especially as the book went on. And one of my favorite things in this book is just the writing. Like, that's one of my favorite things about Charles Dickens. Like, not all the time, but like when he is good, he is so good. Like, his ability to write humor in the book to me is really good. When he has some romantic moments, like the romantic lines and the way that the characters can express how they feel about one another is like, they're the words that I would love to hear. Like, my husband could literally just write these down and like read it off the paper to me, and I'd be like, like, I just think it's perfect. I think he writes tragic moments really well. So all the super sad scenes, spoilers again, I'll keep my hands up here so you know when they're over. But when Pip's sister dies, when Provis dies, like every death by Charles Dickens makes me cry. And in general, I think in his writing, he's just really good with human emotions. Like, I think he does a really good job expressing like the really high emotions and communicating those. And I think it impresses me because he can communicate it in words that are still impactful 150 years later. Like, I still find them relatable emotions and experiences between his characters. And so I have a ton of favorite quotes in here, and most of them, I will admit, are Pip's like loving thoughts. Like, even the moment when Estella just goes to the house out in the country and he talks about how she haunts him there. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
how about you?
The emotional writing is definitely like, I would say there's at least 2 or 3 moments in this book that I actually cried, like real tears. And for me, they weren't like moments of like romantic expressions of love. It was the love between Pip and Joe. That got me every time. Yeah. Every time. So yeah, my favorite things about this book are it comes down to the characters. I loved a lot of the secondary characters. So not even, characters who felt like that we weren't with them the whole time, and the whole time I wanted to get back to them. Characters like Joe and Biddy. And all right, so I had a question. Would you say Estella is like a primary character or secondary character throughout this book?
Oh, I would say she's a secondary character.
Right? Yeah, but like she carried so much weight in the book, but like she herself was secondary. And so this is where I found myself drawn more to those characters. And feeling like Dickens gave them like a really good rich treatment and kept me wanting more of their story. Because when like you brought up like when we get to hear from Estella, like she had things to say. And like she really cut down like as you're reading and like making opinions, because there are a lot of characters. Like there's tertiary characters and then just like throwaway characters.
People passing on the street who have a name and a face and
yeah. But then like when she gets on the page, like she can really like cut through and like call everything for what it is. And like a really powerful way where I was like, yes, like you stay here, like you stay on the page, please. Like, let's follow you back home and not so much Pip.
Yeah, and I mean it came up like I mentioned at one point, you know, we have the book Havisham, and we'll talk about that at the end. But I want a book Estella.
Yeah,
like,
and that surprised me. It really surprised me. Of like she had a lot of growth. I feel like that we don't get to witness, but I feel like when we meet her, we make one assumption and then all of a sudden realize that like she's gone through a lot off page and like she's a really deep character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she has the last like major like closing speech in the book. And in fact, even though the final words are Pip's narration, she's also the last person to speak in dialogue. But she does, like when she's a heavy hitter. She's like the person where if this was a play and it was done as the book is done, she would steal the spotlight every time she came on stage.
Yeah, she really did. And then, so yeah, secondary characters ended up being like my favorite of the book. But I would say Havisham is probably closer to like a primary character throughout. Like Pip is our main character.
He's our protagonist.
I feel like we got a little bit more time with Havisham and like she kind of puppeteered quite a bit. So like, like she moved quite a bit of the plot along in her little machinations. But I loved how creepy she was, or like when she's introduced. So this is where like I got to her on Halloween and just her sitting there in her dress and her wedding feast laid out. And then like Pip has like a vision of her spoilers of like hanging from rafters, and like just Pip's reaction to her, the things she would say, like she was just a really character and I ate it up. Yeah.
I think that's why of like the three things that I remember from this book, she is two of them. Is because even if the book is boring and you like nothing about it or you get nothing out of it, like she stays with you. And I think it's because it's such an unusual, weird, creepy setting and surrounding of her. It's like you can't forget that.
Like she's just so broken and like weird. Like her reaction is just so extreme. That she does really sit with you. She haunts
for better
you.
Or worse. She's with you for a while.
Yeah.
Did you have any other favorites?
I liked Wemmick. He was funny. So okay. He's definitely one that like when he speaks, it falls into that like kind of overwritten or like just dense language where I'm like, what is he saying? But like, as I liked how he has like, there's a duality to his character, like when he's in the workplace and then when he's home and Pip gets to interact with him at home. all of a sudden there's this like lightness and there's this lighter side. So I like how Dickens kind of played like those two sides of people and characters. And
Wemmick's like a living mullet.
yeah.
You know, like, if he was a modern day character, he'd definitely be sporting one, like business in the front, party in the back, like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh! All right, let's
and
see
then,
what you guys.
Biddy was another one of those like characters who's not a main character, but her influence is very important. And so all these secondary characters, I feel like, end up being foils to Pip. Like you can basically compare, like, what does Pip need to learn from these others? And Biddy especially was like a good, and Herbert, good moral compass for Pip to have at different points in his life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that Charles Dickens is really well known for. Like, I don't think everybody likes his characterization, right? Like some people think he goes too far and they end up being caricatures. But I think everybody notices his characters, like, because he writes characters and not just one or two. Like you always have like the whole town and city's worth of people and you know them by name. And, you know, and it's impressive because they're all pretty well developed, which I think is why it then feels hard, because a lot of people, I feel like, in writing will make distinctions between their characters by how well they develop them, you know. And it's not that all of his characters are completely developed or have a huge character arc, but it's like he spends a lot of time making sure you know who's who and repeating it. And some of that comes back to the serialization. Because,
true.
You know, we're reading it all right in a row, but this is serialized over months and months and months. So what for us might have been maybe, 10, 15 chapters since we last saw somebody, for people reading this when it was serialized, it may have been months since they saw that character. So you kind of have to reintroduce them. You have to have standout features on them, like an old wedding dress or somebody who bites their finger or like has a closed eye or a scar in their face or some noticeable characterization so that it'll also click in your mind that like, oh, wait, haven't we seen this person before? You know, or they'll say, you know, the same line every time you see them, which can irritate people, I think, when they're reading the book straight through, but that's part of why it's there.
Yeah. That's a good thing to consider. So I'll go ahead and jump into like least favorites, because
I was going to see what people in the comments first.
Oh, yeah.
If there was anything that they liked. Doug was saying that Pip makes up his mind that it's okay to do the best he can without any expectations. And that was in reply to what Ian was saying about that. Mm-hmm. Did Miss Haversham get it right for Pip that to be happy he should become a blacksmith and not a gentleman?
That was a long lesson for him to... I think... Pip might come to that conclusion by the end.
And I don't even know that that's the conclusion that he really came to.
Yeah, no, because he even said like he would have been better off, but he would have been miserable.
Right. I think the as a blacksmith is the hard part of that question. And Joe was a great character, and you're glad that he let him have it. Yeah. Another chance. So on point about Dickens and writing emotions well. And Doug was responding to Ian saying kind of, but more that the money should be held lightly, easy come, easy go. Yeah, I think more the idea behind why she thought he'd be better off as a blacksmith was probably more right than the actual occupation. Mm-hmm. Stella was like Molly Bloom. I don't know who Molly Bloom is. Do you?
No.
Let us know. You get a lot more Estella in Havisham. Oh, yay.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to Havisham.
Yeah. Yes, this is my thought too. By the end of this book, I wanted a book on Estella.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I marked in Great Expectations the point where Miss Havisham is like, well, if you only knew my story, you'd fully understand me. And by the time we reached that line in the book, I was like, I feel like I have enough of your story to
Yeah.
understand you.
Well, and doesn't Pip even say as much at that point? He's like, actually, Herbert filled me
Yeah,
in.
he does. He's like, I actually know your story.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still not buying your excuse for like
Yeah.
why you're insane.
My roommate, your cousin's son, who like he filled me in.
Miss Havisham's machinations, right?
Yeah.
Remember her being creepy and there being a wedding dress. Yes, these are the things that stick with you. Yeah. The one character that Dina remembers as well, the aged parent. Oh, yes. You know, I think you get away with calling your dad or mother-in-law that though. Yeah, no, that would probably not fly. But yeah, I loved like Wemmick's home and like his household and the aged parent moment. Like,
that reminds me of another favorite and funny moment is like towards the end when Pip almost like introduces Jaggers to Wemmick. Like he's like, he has this whole family life, and Jaggers looks at him, he's like, you do? You have an aged parent? Like, yeah. And like that moment where like they really see each other.
right.
I thought that was hilarious.
And they're like, we can't trust you, but I like that I can't trust you, but what?
Yeah.
Right. Estella has no agency, so Dickens couldn't have given her the story he wanted to follow. She is so important to the narrative, though. Yeah, she is important, and she's an interesting person because there's a lot of speculation that she was actually based off of someone in Dickens' life, and that even the tension that Pip felt towards her mimicked Charles Dickens' own feelings towards this person. So this book was written at a point where he was a well-known author. Like I said, he had his own magazine and he was married, but he was also very interested in this actress. And I won't even get into whether or not they had an affair because I don't know that anyone has fully decided that. But there's rumors and speculations and reasons to believe that that's where things went. But he really struggled because he really thought she was beautiful, absolutely fascinated by this woman, da, 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 and she was known for being very cold towards him, very aloof, very elegant, but very like non-emotional. Like, and so I think a lot of people think that a lot of Pip's feelings and words that he says to Estella are how Dickens felt towards her and was how he felt she was treating him.
That makes a lot of sense because you almost get like this, like in real time, you could see the roller coaster of their relationship because Pip will go from like, I love her so much to like, I'm miserable when I'm with her. Like, not in like a agonizing love kind of way, but just like it's just a really negative. He's like, I'm not happy with her. And like, oh, stupid me for like thinking that I'm gonna, love her and end up with her. Like there's this really like up and down with like, she's great, she's not great. Like she's great. So you can see that like if Charles Dickens is struggling with this relationship and he's like kind of writing to publish like real time, you can kind of pick up on that.
Yeah. 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 And it's so fascinating because I feel like one of the things we talked about as we were reading the book was I felt like I didn't like Pip's like love of Estella at the beginning because I was like, this is insta love, but in a way that didn't make sense to me, that I wasn't enjoying, and that just wasn't working for me. But as I contextualized it more in the context of Dickens' life, I think I also ended up feeling like, well, if he's like partially just putting his own feelings down on the paper, then yeah, they're already developed. So
yeah,
I guess that's just what we're gonna get. Good point about spending many months reading it and not just a few weeks. Yeah. I did spend the whole year reading Clarissa, which is funny because I don't think that was serialized. Molly Bloom was for Ian and his James Joyce. Oh, that's right. Molly Bloom from Ulysses. Okay. Okay. Yes. Got you. Drives the narrative. I have heard that. I didn't realize that was her last name. And oh, yes. And I have also heard that Molly gets the last word. Yeah. All right. That is the last comment. So let's continue on with what we didn't like.
All right. So going back to, and Doug brought us back to it too, your point about like, we're reading things in one shot, but it would have been different reading it like as it was serialized. So one of my low points in the novel was the pacing at certain points. There were whole chapters where I was so bored, or that I felt like this adds nothing. Why is this
every time they went to the theater?
Yeah, pretty much. So that's one of my other least favorite things. Pip himself. And then my other qualm with the book is how many coincidences there are. We can get to that, but for now, like, you have read a lot of Dickens at this point. Do you find that, like, as a modern reader, you need to kind of like take into context that serialization, or?
Not usually, but I will say, knowing that they were serialized, there are like a couple of moments in books, particularly with Charles Dickens, where I feel like I can sometimes tell. Because I find generally his pacing is really good and his plotting makes sense. And that when like he knew what he wanted to happen in his story and it happens and it's done, there's like a very clear line between that and the crap, I still need to write 2 more pages for the magazine.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like he is always really good at smoothing that line out. Like there's one point I can think of in Nicholas Nickleby where Nicholas is like traveling from London to the country or the country to London. I don't remember which way. And at one point, like, he ends up in an inn, and then he ends up listening to a story being told by somebody else. And it's like this whole chapter story about like 3 sisters and something else that has nothing to do with anything at all. And I was like, what the heck was that? And I actually looked it up, and sure enough, it turned out it was a moment where he knew what he wanted to happen in the story. He had his plot, he had the chapter, it was done, and he needed 5 more pages for the magazine.
Yeah.
And so he literally was like, so I just included and rewrote these stories into it that I knew. And like, I loved one of the stories, but plot-wise, I was like, this has nothing to do with anything. So I think it helps to know that, because it will sometimes give you more patience, and then you're not struggling to figure out, what does this have to do with anything? And the answer is sometimes nothing.
Yeah. I feel like some of like Wemmick's like character and like his like home life that we get to see almost feels like that, but it's like the version that worked. Like it ended up really adding to the story and adding to the character. But like the first time I'm like, gosh, like we're spending a lot of time here, and like, what does this have to do with anything?
Yeah, I feel like you can pick them out. Like I'm thinking like theater scene 1, theater scene 2, going with Wemmick to the prison.
Yeah.
Like interesting, but like I feel like I mean, he's waiting for Estella to arrive, and it's like, well, what am I going to do while I wait? I know, let's go to the prison. And I literally wrote in my book, this must have been at the end of the serialized part. Like, here's the scene right here.
Yeah.
And it does. It messes with the pacing. Particularly, I think, in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So for me, there were things that I disliked in this book. Pip was not my favorite. I was surprised by that. I usually like the protagonist of Charles Dickens stories, and I thought Pip was pretty morally gray, which didn't bother me, but I just ended up not liking Pip that much. But the thing that drove me crazy was the numerous unnecessary subplots and like minor characters. I don't know what comes after tertiary, but there were several layers after that. Like when I think of, okay, so when I think of subplots that like went nowhere and I didn't need every time they went to the theater, I'm going to keep saying that. That drove me crazy. Orlick and his whole subplot could have been absorbed into Compeyson's character because I didn't understand. Like, even when Orlick first showed up on the page, I was like, where did he come from?
Yeah, he's been back there this whole time. Like
hiding out in the forge. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, and there was this guy Orlick, and he's worked with them the whole time. And I'm like, we're on page chapter like 7. Where's Orlick been this whole time? So I didn't understand Orlick being a character in the book at all. I didn't like that he was given a subplot. I didn't feel like I feel like you could have taken every reference to him out of the book and you would have still had a perfectly good story, probably a better story.
And he's so drawn out too, because then like when you find out like he's the one who did something like way back in the beginning of the book, I was like, I don't care anymore. Why are you back in this story?
Right. And then the like convoluted way that forced him to connect him to Compeyson, to Provis, to like, no.
Yeah.
I didn't like that subplot. The subplot with the housekeeper, and again, spoiler, housekeeper being Estella's mother. And the entire way, like, that was apparently being drawn out across the book very subtly with the like, and then I glanced at her and there was some flashing light across her face and it reminded me of something. I can't remember what. And then once he finally figures out an unnecessary mystery in the book, even Jaggers is like, okay, now that you figured that out, like, what are you going to do with that information?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was Dickens' subconscious being like, now that you work that out in the plot, like, so what? Who cares? Like, and then nothing happens with that information because, like Jaggers said, what would happen with that information?
Yeah. And like, so I expected that to become an internal drama for Pip, like another moment that we're testing his character. Where is he going to land? Who's he going to tell? Is he going to keep this quiet himself? But like, he doesn't even think about it. Jaggers is like, you probably shouldn't say anything. He's like, okay.
Right. And I'm like, really? You had all those references and then and then Wemmick mentions her and then a whole scene with her and then a whole moment where he figures it out and then that's it. We're just moving on.
Yeah. And I mean, he does eventually tell Magwitch, what he's uncovered. But even that, I was like, you're waiting literally until his last breath. We're talking about how he's going to pass away and like the inheritance is just going to be dissolved. Like, and who his next of kin is.
Yeah. And I'm like, did you really do all of that just so that you could have that one final moment? And did he need that one final moment? Like, if you took all of that out of there, could it not still have been a touching ending for him?
Yeah.
So those were my subplots that I couldn't stand. And then I had 2 characters that I was like, please write these out of the story immediately. One was Trabb's boy, who was, what was it, like the tailor's assistant in the shop, who comes in there and then every time Pip goes back to town is there again and then is like part of the rescue mission.
Yeah. When he shows up to like rescue Pip, I was like, you really?
Of all the people in the book.
Yeah. I mean, so I liked the first like revisit of him when Pip goes back home. I forget why If it's just to see Estella, or if it was, it probably wasn't to visit Joe.
Right. We know that wasn't it.
But the guy, what's his name? Trebs boy, or where he says, well, I guess man now. And he's like very mocking, like, oh, look at me, I'm a gentleman, like very much like mocking Pip's situation. And I was like, all right, Pip kind of deserves that.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I do feel like there's an aspect of him that's probably like one of those reoccurring characters to reset us back in the town because it was serialized, but I don't think it's one that was done well.
Yeah. And then it went on for too long. I was like, we get it. He's not getting like, oh, nice warm welcome home.
Right.
Can we stop?
Right. Yes, please. And then I think if my least favorite character of all was hands down Startop. And not because there was anything wrong with Startop, but the problem was there was nothing to Startop. Like he was literally a name and a character device because somebody at some point said you needed two people to row the boat. There was no other reason for him to be in the story. Like he's in there at the beginning when he first moves into Matthew's house. We never see him again. And then he pops up in like the last few chapters and Pip's like, I know, we'll ask my great friend Startop, one of my two best friends. And I'm like, since when?
Yeah. It's like the opposite of what Steinbeck did with like the oldest brother in Grapes of Wrath. Where like he made this character and then was like, oh, I gotta dump you. Like, I forgot about you and you gotta go. This is like the opposite where it's like, oh yeah, I have a guy I could bring back in.
Right. You're right. We do need a second person to row the boat. Startop can do it. For like half a second, I was like, who? I was like, no, not And still, we get no character development. Like we once maybe get a brief, like one sentence description of what he looks like. And then Startop comes back, he rows the boat, and we never see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, going back to like that whole like rescue scene when Orlick has Pip all tied up and like who comes in to rescue him? I'm like, why you guys? Like they're like, where's Joe? I want Joe and Biddy to save him.
Right. Like I would have bought it. I would have totally bought it in that moment that like Biddy like came out of nowhere and like came to the rescue. But like, no. There were certain people that I was like, this, I'm not ready for this. This makes no sense. I don't like you. Why are you in this story? And I feel like, that's like a flaw in the characters. He can make all these characters and sometimes there's just like 5 too many. Yeah. And I'm like, you couldn't have used one of the 17 other people you made?
Yeah.
That we like? Yeah. So Doug was saying, does anyone know if you can buy an edition that is completely serialized? I may be wrong, but I think the Penguin Classics editions in the contents part of their books, they break it up into the sections that it's serialized in. I don't know otherwise if there's any way to get it like the way it's serialized.
Well, the way it's split into 3 volumes has something to do with the serialization, no?
Yeah. I think it was published, I want to say 3 or 4 chapters at a time. But then it would have been usually published as a book in the 3 volumes when it came out in novel form. Ian was saying that's very interesting and gives context to how realistic Pip's complex feelings towards Estella is. This was going back to the comments I was making about the actress. Mm-hmm. And point in case Dina doesn't remember any of these characters, and you wouldn't. Oh, Tom Jones' brother. Doug got that reference. Yep. Great live stream. Oh, you liked the chat better than the book.
Do you know, I
Oh,
love when that happens because there's been like in my book club that, we meet monthly. There's been a couple of times where like we all absolutely hate the book and it makes for the best like book club meeting. Like it just ends up being a good time.
yeah, yeah. So I guess those are all the things that we dislike. Is there anything else real quick before we, get into our ratings and high school appropriateness and that kind of thing? Leave in the chat if there's any other moments in the book that you'd like to talk about. I know in these discussions, we don't always get into like plot moments. And there are some really interesting plot points and that kind of thing that happen. So if you'd like us to talk about those with you guys real quick before we leave, we can do that. But shall we get on to reviewing and whatnot for now? And then we'll come back to you guys in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I forgot to write mine down. So let me grab a piece of paper.
I did that. It's new every time. That's what I was doing while we were talking. I was like, and then, like I was saying, and I'm not even sure my number actually makes sense. I might need to do or my letter rather. I might have to do some quick math. And you guys do the same too. Let us know, what would you rate this book? Or if you read it recently, what did you rate it? What is your memory of this book? Rate it. Yeah, okay. I was right on my rating. Dina was saying that she didn't want Pip and Estella to get together at the end. I felt mixed about that. The only thing I felt strongly about was I did not want Pip and Biddy to get together at the end. Like, I would have been flat out mad if that happened because he did not deserve her.
Oh, yeah. As he's like writing about how he's going to go talk to her and like he's realized like what an honor if Biddy, you would spend the rest of your life with me. And I was like, are you kidding me? This guy? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Doug hated Ulysses, but in the last 20 years, you've loved talking about it with smart people. Yeah, that always helps. Dina wanted the Russian version ending and would have given it somewhere between 3.5 and 4 stars. And she also agrees about Biddy. Yeah. Like, if there were two people who deserved like all the good things and happiness and this and that in the world, I would say it was probably Joe. And then honestly, I'd probably say and then Estella and then Biddy. Because I feel like I don't like have warm feelings about Estella, but I feel like she deserves a much better life than
she didn't have a shot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Kristen also gave it 3.5 stars and deserved. I don't know. I feel like Estella also deserved better than Pip. Like, all right. Are you ready to show?
Okay. Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, there you go. Mine is a 4. Yours is a 3.5.
Yep.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I think I kind of alluded to this, that like there were too many coincidences in the book also. And I think that also kind of like brought it down where I'm like,
yeah,
I can only suspend my belief so far. Like,
yeah. I mean, the last section of my book, most of the comments I was writing was really, oh, come on. Coincidence my ass. Like, I don't think so. Yeah. I don't know how much I took that into account with my letter grade there. Because that was pretty ridiculous. Like, we were talking about well, I'll get to that when we talk about other books. Anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So now that we've revisited you revisited my first time here. How do you think this fits in as like a high school assigned reading?
I could see I'm thinking about like I feel bad that this is the book that is being used to introduce people to Charles Dickens. Um One, because it's one of his longer works, and I agree with what Dina said earlier. I don't think it's one of his better ones. But I get why you could use it in a high school setting. Like I think it would be appropriate for high school. Um, I think it fits in there because of the coming of age. I think because of the idea of that things may not work out as you expect, and that growth may end up coming through suffering. Um, and I think a lot of those different themes I feel like are what would be pulled out of high school. So I'm not surprised that in high school or middle school you would use one of Dickens' works that has to do with growth. And I do think there is like the pop of color in the book that you get from the strange character of Mrs. Havisham. So, and because, well, Pip's not that young at the end, but I think for the vast majority of the book, he feels very young. He's very immature. So I think maybe there would be some thought that he'd be one of the more relatable characters of Dickens.
Yeah, he is very immature, and he has that like I'm the center of the universe kind of mindset that I guess would kind of, you might want to use that to like show high schoolers and see like, well, actually see how much he's got to learn about that mentality. But yeah.
What about you? Yeah.
I guess I think this is one of those books where like I can see maybe reasons why we could add it to a curriculum, but ultimately I feel like it's not worth it because you're going to just have to deal with high schoolers who don't want to read it, and they're not going to get anything out of it because this is not the most accessible, like language wise. It's a lot of work. Yeah, I think it just becomes like students just don't like what's assigned. This isn't going to win win any of them over.
Yeah, especially because we're all like, it's okay as a book as a whole, like outside of any school setting. So yeah, interesting. So Kristen was saying that it doesn't bode well for her rereads of high school required reading, because this is the one that she would have thought she would have fully liked. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it exceeded my high school experience. Like I liked it better than I did, but I could also like, as I was reading it, I was like, oh, I could see why I thought it was boring in high school. Yeah. And Doug was saying B and C. What is B and C?
Our grades.
Oh, right. Oh, why do we keep reading this guy? Because some of his other works are way better. I promise. I was actually surprised, and I was telling Alexis, I was surprised that given that this is one of his later books in terms of his career, that it's one that not only did I not like as much as some of his other works, but I don't think is done as well as some of his other works. Like, I do think this book is falling into a time period in his writing where he was feeling the pressure of having to get something out every week. And even though he was a little bit ahead, like when he started publishing this serially, he hadn't finished the book. And so he was still writing it. And like that deadline was coming in closer and closer as he was writing it. And so I think there did become a point in the book where he was writing it and sending it in directly to be published. And I mean, that's a lot to do in a 1 week period.
All while being distracted by an actress.
Right. But Doug thinks we'll love Havisham. They probably just, yeah. Dina thinks they pick it for high school because it's shorter for Dickens and boys can relate to obsessing over a hot girl out of reach. I like that. But see, I would have thought like if you just wanted to pick a Dickens that was shorter, Tale of Two Cities is shorter, and more people seem to like that one. A Christmas Carol is very short. He has actually quite a few short stories too. Um, but you like my explanation better.
Yeah.
Oh, relatable. I think A Tale of Two Cities. See, I think so too. And Christmas Carol. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Those are, I haven't read A Tale of Two Cities in a long time, but A Christmas Carol is such a good book. It takes all the parts that I love about this book and like the characterization and the emotional writing and
And the
packages.
humor.
Yeah.
I remember being surprised at how funny that one was.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't dislike this read, but you just felt like it was completely different book. Yeah, I like kept reading it and going, did I read this book? Like, what the heck? Did you read A Tale of Two Cities in high school? Remember liking that? Apparently, you only read Dickens. I feel like there was a certain time period where a lot more of his works were read in high school. So yeah. All right. Well, what do we have left? Further reads?
Further reads. Well, I guess it didn't end up coming up, but like read-alikes also is something.
Yeah, read-alikes. I did actually have one. I had The Street. And obviously not in a lot of ways, but I felt like I connected this to Great Expectations in terms of they're both looking at the idea of somebody who has a longing to get out of their life of poverty and like what they're thinking is going to get out of them and how money plays a role into that, or so they think. And so I thought those themes surrounding class and wealth and trying to get out of poverty was a theme that I found in here as I'm reading this to be very similar to Great Expectations. And it may be because I'm reading them within a month of each other, but I don't think it is.
That's a really good connection that, yeah, it makes sense. And I didn't really make that. Thank you for pointing that out. In my notes, I have this reads like a telenovela, like any one of them, just pick one. Which reminds me, I feel like at some point we compared Jane Eyre to a novella also. Because that's what I have as like this read alike. I was kind of surprised at the span of years that we follow Pip for. And then that reminded me like, oh yeah, Jane Eyre opens when she's a very young child too. And then we have that jump. There's a lot of ridiculous coincidences in Jane Eyre also.
Yeah. Well, and Jane Eyre is technically a Bildungsroman.
Right. Yeah.
So, and Bronte and Dickens did not like each other's Bildungsromans.
Really? Well, I'm Team Bronte, I guess, because I love Jane Eyre. As much as like I will always agree with people who like say I didn't like this, Rochester's the worst, this is unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's 5 stars every time I read it.
Yeah. And I even had a Rochester moment in this book where major spoilers for both books. The point where Pip catches on fire in trying to rescue Mrs. Havisham, who's on fire. And like just the whole sequence of him like having burns and this and that totally reminded me of Mr. Rochester. And then interestingly enough, in the opening of this book, they talk about how Great Expectations was kind of Charles Dickens' Wuthering Heights in terms of the setting. And I was like, oh, I would not have thought about that, but that is such a valid point.
So Wuthering Heights almost made it onto my, like, now coming off this book, what does my TBR look like? Because I have not read Wuthering Heights. And yeah.
I haven't read it since high school. Yeah.
I feel like I've heard so many people not like, but I'm like, no, I want to love it. Like, and that's almost keeping me from starting it. I'm afraid.
I think
Like,
I will like it more than I did in high school, because in high school I had two friends who were crushing on Heathcliff, and then I read it and I was like, we need to talk. There needs to be an intervention.
well, I think that's what's keeping me is like, I'm afraid I'm going to love Heathcliff too, because I loved Rochester the first time I read Jane Eyre.
It's a totally different bag of nuts.
Oh, okay.
Literally.
Because like the toxic Rochester, like it worked for me the first time I read Jane Eyre. And I've heard that about that book is like the first time you read it will be for the romance, and then you'll be able to focus on Jane's character and like, you know, the more feminist side of her.
Yeah, I think it's more like, if you want toxic relationship, you will get that. Like, there are things to like about the book and to like about the characters and like their toxicity. It's just when somebody puts it to you as like, oh, it's a great romance with this lovable character, then your world will be turned upside down and you'll be like, I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm concerned for you.
Right.
But
we'll add Wuthering Heights to our ever growing buddy read list.
Yeah. The ending of The Street broke Dina. I'm not there yet, but I can imagine, because I can't see it having an American ending.
Yep.
East of Eden with class wealth and how we get that wealth. Ooh, that's a good connection, Doug. Mm-hmm. Definitely on Team Bronte. The Fire for sure took you back to Jane Eyre as well. Yeah. Good thinking, Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre. I mean, you might like his characterization, but for different reasons probably than you're thinking.
Okay.
Dina blocked Wuthering Heights from her mind. Time for reread. Yeah, sounds like we might all be getting on that reread.
Right, so Wuthering Heights and Havisham, right?
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to Havisham, like even more now after this chat.
Yeah. So thanks for everything you shared about it, Doug. It was helpful to have you already read it. Mm-hmm. So, but this is Havisham, and I mean, you get the dress already, right there on the front.
The version I have, it's upstairs, but it's got like the silhouette of a young woman with like an older woman's face on top of it. So that was an interesting cover.
I'm gonna have to see that. That sounds cool. So, all right. Well, I think that's it, right?
Yeah. Oh, and Woman in White. So I have not read Woman in White, but every time Havisham was on the page, I was like, I need to read Wilkie Collins.
You do. I mean, it's a good story. Very different story, though.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say there is much about that story that reminds me.
I don't think there's any correlation other than whenever like Havisham gets described, I'm like, oh, and there's, you know, she is in her dress. And I was like, oh, like.
No, I get you. Anytime somebody says like the words woman in white appear in anything, that's what the association I have. Mm-hmm. But well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. That is it. I will say that this is slightly different than how our book club discussions go. Obviously, normally when we're doing book club, it's more questions directed at you guys who are watching and more of a group discussion. But having it combined with our high school required reading, we definitely wanted to still incorporate some of the things that we normally discuss with that. And so we will be having another high school required reading book coming up. Our next book for that is The Great Gatsby, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I still need to get a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
I keep forgetting that
I'm going to want to know how everyone feels about The Great Gatsby. Like, I feel like it's one that like everyone loved when they read it in high school. I did not.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
It was like up there with Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah. And I have revisited it since then. Like this would be third time for me.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So we will be, like we did with this, I will be trying to post when we'll do the live stream for The Great Gatsby well in advance. So if you guys want to read that with us, you will be able to, and that will be public, that live stream. And then in December, the book club read for the channel members is going to be The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. And I'm going to cover that up so that you can see. Make sure you read the edition by E.T.A. Hoffman. Like, that is the most important part. Because Alexandre Dumas wrote The Tale of the Nutcracker. It's a different story. You will be very confused. It's not a totally different story because his was a rewriting / addition onto E.T.A. Hoffman's book. And you can read them independently of one another, but there will be great confusion if we don't all read the same book. And that one will be a private discussion again. And then, as an exciting note, can I tell them about 2026 plans?
Yeah.
So in 2026, I will be releasing what our book club picks will be coming up in December. But I have talked to Alex, and Alex has agreed to co-host the book club with me. So
I'm excited. Yeah, anytime I can chat, and I'm there.
Yeah. So we'll be putting together a book list. We'll be doing an announcement for that, and we will be announcing that. And then our plan as a sneak peek for the year of 2026 is we're basically going to do a book club pick every other month, and that will still be the private book club. And then in between that, as we go, we will still be doing the live public discussions of the stuff off of our high school required reading list, because we still have like half the list to go, a little less than half.
We still have to finish our list, and I feel like as we go, we keep adding to that list, or like, oh, here's what we do for like
Wuthering Heights apparently may need to be tacked on. Yeah. So we will have all that to look forward to. So yes, thank you for everyone who commented and who came and who watches. Like I said, or like Alex mentioned at the beginning, if you're watching this recording back, feel free to continue the discussion in the comments below, or even if you watched it live. Woman in White is fantastic. I really like it. I'm glad you liked the format. Yes, Gatsby. Yeah,
is that definitely a good yes, Doug? Good yes for Gatsby.
And then these are the woohoo to your joining. Yay! It was fun, and I'm so glad that we're gonna do it like this. I know we tried doing it as the Zoom, which worked really well and was fun because everybody else could participate, but it also meant that there were times where people couldn't make it, and then because it wasn't recorded, there was no way to watch it back. So I think this will work. Hello, Viviana. And thank you for people who were also watching live who may not have been commenting, because I can see how many people are here, and I know not everybody was commenting, and that's totally fine, but I'm glad that you joined us. And yeah, I think that's it for now.
Yep, always a fun time.
Bye,
everyone.